Okay, in this video we're going to talk about the water cycle lesson that Leah showed to us. So she referred to a mat a lot, or using the Sphero on a mat. All the mat is just a student created like poster. So I just have butcher paper, and the students can draw the diagram of the water cycle. So you can see mine's pretty basic. It doesn't have all the parts of the water cycle, no definitions or anything. So it could be a good idea to kind of make the requirements for your students to include more information or whatever you want that to look like. And then also allowing your students to be a little bit more creative with it. So in this lesson, you can drive or code the Sphero to go to the different parts of the water cycle and either have a student explain where the Sphero stop or have the Sphero explain where it stops, depending on if you just drive it or if you code it. So I have the Sphero on the start here, and I just have a start here spot because especially if I code it, my directions that I code are going to have to match where I want them to go on the board. So if I have a different starting spot every time, my code isn't going to work out. So I've connected my robot up here so you can see that it's connected. And then we're going to just start with the drive. So the drive feature requires no coding. I kind of think it's a little bit harder to use the drive just because it's a little finicky, but your students may like it better. And it's a great place to start so you don't have to worry about the coding. It's just getting a feel for the robot. So at the top, you can change the color. So you guys can see the color changing on the Sphero. Can you see the color changing? Yep. You can change the brightness to where it's super bright, or you can dial it down to no color if you wanted, or just kind of halfway, whatever you wanted to do. You can change the speed of the Sphero. I suggest starting with a little bit of a slower speed because it's harder to control when it's faster, but your students are definitely going to want to put the Sphero as fast as they can, so it might be a good idea to let them play with that before getting started. There's the aim button to kind of move your direction, and then the joystick, which moves the Sphero. So again, I think moving it with the joystick's kind of hard, so let's see. I'm just going to kind of play with it and see where the Sphero goes and kind of adjust my direction there. And then you can see if I like make it really fast, it's a lot harder to control the Sphero. So you want to make sure your students are kind of playing with that and making sure they choose the appropriate speed. Okay, but now we're going to move into just coding the Sphero because this is a great way for your students to work together and kind of figure it out even if they don't know coding. And then for this activity, if they move the Sphero using the drive feature, everywhere they stop, they can explain the part of the water cycle, what it is. Or if you code it, you can have the Sphero or the device explain the content as they go. So I'm going to go to Programs. I'm going to create a new program. So for younger kids, this is actually pretty cool. If you have younger kids who maybe can't read or anything yet, you can select Draw, and it allows them to draw the code on a coordinate plane just using their finger. But this one we're going to talk about using blocks. And then I just wanted to point out the virtual bot that Leah talked about if you don't have enough devices and want your students to do that. All right, so you'll pick your device. So I'm using a Sphero Spark. I'm not using the Bolt because you guys have all of those. So I'm going to hit Create. And then I have my code. So if you look on the bottom, it has movements, it has lights that you can change the color, it has sound, controls, like if you use the same code over and over again, like our loops, operators. So if you want to do this with math, you can. Sensors that does different thing. Lots of different options here that you can see. So today we'll use movements, we'll use lights, and we'll use sounds. And if Christy, if you want to talk kind of through this with me so we can just kind of demonstrate the process of how this works. So I guess first, if we start here, do you think we should go to evaporation first?
Yeah, I think so. We'll have to go left.
Left, yeah, so we'll go left to evaporation. And this is all trial by error, so it's okay if your students don't get it right the first time. That's kind of the purpose of this. So if you look at my code here, okay, so I'm going to do this one. So I'm going to see what this roll button looks, and I'm just going to drag it on Start Program. I'm going to roll. Then I'm going to click here. Where do I want it to roll? So if I'm start here, well, I want to go left. So let's see if I move it just this direction. All right, let's just see what happens. I check the check mark. And then it says roll at 270 degrees at a slow speed, choosing my speed forward. And then let's say for 8 seconds. Okay, so I'm going to start that code. Do you want to just see what we have so far? Just going to start that code and see what it looks like. Oops, and my Sphero disconnected, so I'm just going to reconnect it. It says you're too slow, Chelsea. All right, so Sphero is connected again, so let's run that code. Okay, so obviously that is not where we want the Sphero to go.
We need to go forward, so we probably, what, 290?
Yeah, so it didn't go exactly where we wanted it to go, so we're going to kind of go back to the drawing board and see, okay, it's okay that it didn't go where we wanted it to go. This is kind of where we use our debugging and problem solving skills to kind of get it to where we want it to go. So we chose 270 and it went down, so maybe we want to do it up a little bit more?
I would say maybe not even quite 290.
How about 280? Let's try. Let's just see what happens.
We'll try.
All right. So 280, same speed for 8 seconds. Let's see what happens. Okay, so you can see we're closer, but we're not there yet. So let's start it again.
And it's still running when it gets over there, so I think 8 seconds is too long.
Yeah, okay. So Christy made the point that it runs into the chair, and that's the only reason why it's stopping. So maybe running for 8 seconds is too long before it stops. So what do you think? You want to try 4?
Sure.
Oops, not 84. 4 seconds. Okay. 4 seconds. We said 280, still not quite
So
there.
maybe 285?
291, since that's where my finger went?
Sure.
Okay. All right, so let's start it. See what happens.
It's still
Okay.
too low, but it's too far.
So it's still a little too low. So let's move it maybe to 296, 7.
Sure.
And then the time is still a little too long, so let's try maybe
2 seconds.
2 seconds. Okay. Let's see what the Sphero does.
Oh,
All right.
pretty good.
So what do we think? Do we like that, or do we think we need to make the time a little bit shorter?
We could make it a little shorter.
Okay. So let's make the time 1.5 seconds. 1.5 seconds. Put it back to the start. Okay. So we like the 297. So we're just making the time shorter. Here we go.
It's a little too short.
A little too short. So this is, just you trial and error, problem solve. So 1.5, let's move it maybe 1.75. See how it does.
Oh.
Oopsies. Forgot to set it back at the beginning. Okay. Perfect. Yeah, so you really want to emphasize with your students, you can see we are both adults, and look how long it took us just to figure out this first step. So you want to encourage, you don't have to get the right answer the first time, you just persevere until you get what you're looking for.
Can we make it color?
Yeah, okay, so now we're going to change the color. So we're at evaporation, so we're going to say, okay, after it rolls to evaporation, we're going to go to lights. We're going to change the main LED to maybe red because it needs to be hot for evaporation. And then what we'll do, so we'll change the color to red. So let's just see what that looks like. So I went to lights, main LED, and when you click, I change it to red. And when you have your code, you want it all connect. So I just dragged it to connect and start. Turns red. Okay, and this is where now we want to add the sound. So when it talks about, oops, and then you can see I accidentally put in an extra one. So if I just click and drag, it deletes it. So let's go to sounds. So what Leah said, I really liked how she added her own sound for the content. So I'm going to add that. And then it's going to say, maybe you have your students say, the first step of the water cycle is evaporation, and evaporation means, and they tell about evaporation. But for this, I'm just going to type in evaporation. So whatever they want to say, they just type it in here to this evaporation box. So I'll maybe say evaporation definition. Okay, and then my code looks good, or I think it looks good. I guess we'll see. I'll move it back to the start and then see how we did.
Evaporation definition.
There we go. So now our first part is good. We have evaporation done. We want to go ahead now and move to the rest of the code. So, We're not going to show you that whole thing because it'll take too long, but essentially what you're going to do is just the same process. You know, after that, you're going to have, you know, you can put in here your Sphero to stop, but then you'll go ahead and kind of copy this code, but then change the numbers. So you're going the same distance. So for this roll, oopsies. For this roll, you know, maybe you keep it at the speed of 39 or 35 because that's where my finger landed. Keep it for 1.75 seconds because at that speed, it rolled that kind of distance. So we'll try there as a good starting point. And then we'll adjust, you know, okay, to what
10.
degree do you want to roll? Is it just went to 20, so we'll do that. And then, you know, you can come back in here, change your main LED again, maybe dark blue for snow. And then you can add your sound and say, condensation, baby. Let's add an exclamation point and see what it does too. And then you'll keep doing the same thing. Gotta start from the beginning. Oops, okay. Start your code.
Evaporation definition. Condensation baby.
Yeah, so you can see that we still need to fix it and kind of debug it as we've been doing. We won't show you that whole thing, but then the idea is once your students get back to the start here, you can then have them run your whole code for you as a teacher and kind of walk through explaining the water cycle. With the code that they're writing. And this whole time they're problem solving, using math and angles and kind of spatial awareness to kind of figure out where they're going. They're working on perseverance because you're not going to get it right the first time. It's great to work with a partner like you saw with me and Christy. We can kind of bounce ideas off of each other of what works, what doesn't. You can have one person be the coder, and then maybe, you know, you can have another student be in charge of moving the Sphero back to start when you guys are testing. So this, even if you are coding, this could be a real easy kind of low impact way to introduce your students to coding with no experience, or just getting to practice them driving and then renewing or reviewing this content, because if they have to run the code a million times, they're going to hear the Sphero talk about the water cycle a million times, so they're going to get that content kind of too as they're going. So, and if your students don't know what this code means, have them put it on there and try it. There's no harm in just trying to see what it does, and if it works, roll with it, and if it doesn't work, just put it to the delete and try something else. And that's it.
Evaporation definition. Condensation baby. Precipitation.